different. So let me give you as an example, right? Most people will say, well, data with, that's gender specific are sensitive data. Well, but if you're doing research to identify, well, what's the potential recurrence of, let's say, heart attacks in women versus men, or pneumonia in women versus men, you do need the gender data. However, if that data, well, you can have all the other scenarios in terms of how that data can be used to perpetuate discrimination. So I think that the context in terms of how the data is being used is very important. We do believe that data should be anonymized in some way, shape, or form. Completely understand that anonymization is not perfect, but the analogy that we often use is, it's like a lock on your front door, if you will, right? Locks are not impenetrable. It doesn't stop everybody, but then the use of a lock in combination with a law against breaking locks can go a long way towards addressing some of these concerns. So those are some of the things that we really were looking at and believe in.
That's great. I guess the last, I want to draw a nuance a little bit, and I think it comes from your work there's a lot of data out there. We tend to think about it like some monolithic entity, but in fact, your data flows are everything from satellite images to very granular data that you're scraping off the web, probably, to data that you're getting from government agencies that have put it out into the public domain. And all those have a different level of kind of personal attributes to them, probably. Some are very personal data, some are fairly remote. Is there a way for us to begin to differentiate this, or must we treat data all together? I mean, can we begin to categorize it and have different rules maybe for one set of data, engineering data, versus another set of data, customer data, which may have a high personal content?
Yeah. On our side, we are also very careful about how the data used, basically, especially in terms of individual profiles, etc. On our side, in fact, the business of quantum technology is about more how to use it at the macro level. So we're not going to identify a person by crossing different types of data, because even if it's anonymous, by crossing credit card data, GPS data, or telco data, you're going to hit or to find the individual, basically. So this is this kind of applications that we do not develop, because it's going to touch the identity or the privacy of people. But on our side, what we are very interested in is about how to aggregate those data that you have mentioned from social media. And social media is also what you call aspirational data, which is a kind of different. It's a picture of yourself that you give, basically. So it doesn't necessarily touch the ID, the identity of the person by itself. So even so, we use those data more to create applications more at macro level that everybody can use. In fact.
Karen, do you have anything you want to add here? Or?
No, I mean, I think that it's very much the same points. I think it really is the categorization of data, but in terms of use. Right, because without the context, it's very difficult to just say gender data shouldn't be, should not be used. And so it really comes down to that. I think the context of use is very important in thinking about that question.
Okay, we were talking just broadly about the issue of liability. And there's this long chain for getting to AI where you have the data, you clean it, you train the machine learning on it, you begin to get some artificial intelligence, and through that artificial intelligence, you begin to make decisions one way or another. And you can see a case maybe where it makes the wrong decision. Automated vehicles are the primary example here. In your mind, where along that chain should we begin to assign liability so that the market forces can work to help correct this problem?
Yeah. What I would say, what is also very important by using AI and all those different types of data, this is also learning curve, meaning that at the beginning you can, it's not going to be very accurate. Yeah. And also what we call as a startups, also experiments are very important and to learn basically from your fails and how you are able to improve your algos to be as accurate as possible, definitely. So this is why I'm saying that learning curve and experiments and sharing results with other partners is very important also to have accurate predictions, etc.
Yeah, I think that if we need to keep the framework in mind in terms of what AI is trying to achieve here, right, which is you want to encourage broad deployment and innovation of AI. So to the question of things like liability and safety, the question here is, so what should the system do in order to enable its safe use? And here you get to the question of human-robot or human-machine interaction. And what are some of the information there that should be passed through so that there isn't, it should be shared within that interaction so that it's not just like, okay, I'm going to hand control over to you and you take it over without any sort of any appropriate information that will allow responsible action. So I think that the question really needs a lot more discussion to say, what is liability in terms of what kind of system and what information could there be, and how can AI be how can AI be a part of helping that conversation along?
So when this came up in the conference, I got a little bit worried that we would almost set too high a standard. We would expect perfection out of this. And I was thinking, well, what's the alternative? I have to deal with Parisian drivers here in Paris. They have their imperfections as well. Do you worry that we may set too high a standard and this may stifle some of the innovation and diffusion?
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing up that question. You're right that we, as human beings, we have a tendency to expect technology to be perfect. But it's not, we've talked a little bit about some of the issues already. Remember that the technology only should be better than what was there before. So, for example, we talk a lot about loan approval, right, or mistakes in diagnostics at hospitals, right? In the U.S., the third leading cause of death in hospitals is mistakes. So, if AI can help to mitigate that a little bit and bring down some of the fatalities, then I think that the algorithm is doing its job in terms of servicing, for the human good. Same thing with traffic fatalities, right? Today, there are, in the U.S., somewhere between 25 to 30,000 fatalities due to traffic accidents. And we believe that AI can help to bring down some of those fatalities. And I think that really needs to be a part of the conversation as well. And, so as you said, it's not perfect, and it can't be.
And also, I would say AI is, there is a big development of AI, but also what is also important is about the confidence of people in AI also. So also on our side, also what is very important is about the transparency of our algorithms, basically, such that we understand why we have good results, but why also sometimes we can be wrong, basically. So for this purpose, we are very transparent about, what kind of algos are behind the AI by publishing some, white papers or some academics papers, such that we can, if it doesn't work for some reason, we know exactly why it does not work. And I think it's very important to build up this trust and confidence in AI by being transparent.
It's great. I don't want to take you out of the conference anymore. I just have one last question for both of you. What are you taking away from this conference that maybe you didn't know before? And again, do you see a specific role for the OECD going forward here? Carolyn?
So my one takeaway, which is a positive one, was that there seems to be general consensus for the experts sitting in the room on the need for human-centered AI. And very, very gratified to see the conversation going that way, that we don't really need to make the emphasis on that. The role for the OECD, I think I've been bringing that up all along, which is that the OECD as an evidence-based policy development organization can do a lot of good in convening a conversation around this with governments, framing it around the potential with the other stakeholders at the table. Again, focusing on how can we all work together to realize the potential of human-centered AI.
And I would say I'm glad to be invited, in fact, to this conference, and thank you very much. And also what I think is very important is about the awareness of AI. So what we can do with AI in terms of use cases. So this is what we have been presented yesterday. And by looking at use cases, it's going also to give lots of ideas to people from OECD, basically. And I think this is also very important for us to be aware of what we can do with AI, and then after to discuss all together about, now you know the use cases, you know what are your objectives, and to meet together, basically, to use AI for the good of the mission of OECD, basically.
Yeah, no, I thank you both. No, I think this is in an earlier meeting we were talking about, can we begin to frame what's a positive outcome that we want to achieve? And I think that's part of what you're talking about today and what the conference has helped us to do. I just want to say thank you to you both, and I want to say thank you to our audience for your attention, and stay tuned for our next broadcast at 5 p.m. today. Thank you very much.